All right, welcome to the Danger Zone, the podcast that's uncut, uncensored, and unfiltered. I'm your host, Thomas Lee. Absent is our usual audio director and my best friend, Chad Allen. Family business, you know it is. Relatives come in. You gotta do what you gotta do. But this week we have our first guest, Kyle Wright. He's sitting next to me right now. Kyle, why don't you say a few words?
Sure. This is very different for me, so bear with me as we're doing this for fun. This is a first shot, and we're going to see how it goes. Anyway, I am Kyle Wright. I have a YouTube channel, just like Tommy does have. I run the channel, Kyle Wright Network, although it's been a year since I've done any videos on it, mainly due to school, and then I've also had to work a lot and take care of some other business regards to home. So I haven't really done much, and now I'm here with Tommy today, hopefully to start that back up again, but I'm doing the podcast and see how it goes.
Yeah, well, cool, man. We'll definitely get into that. And I mean, if you want to do a little plug, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, that kind of stuff at the end, leave you some time there. Yeah, so I'll just make some quick announcement first on the podcast. So the first thing is we are doing development on our next film for my YouTube channel. I guess Lee Productions. I kind of just said that because Lee Productions sounded cool. But so yeah, what the plan is right now, we're going to start shooting this week actually for the new film. It's going to be feature length, roughly 30-40 minutes. And I thought I'd announce the title of the movie right here, right now on this podcast. So if you're sticking around for the first 2 minutes, then you will know.
And hopefully it wasn't too boring for you.
Yeah. If you were bored with the first 2 minutes, please leave because we don't want to disappoint you. This is the highlight.
Even if you were bored as I was talking the very second.
Then please leave.
Exactly.
So yeah, we decided we're gonna call the film. It's gonna be called Thomas Lee the Movie, Code of Honor. I think, and I'll get into explaining the title in the future. But that's right now. I will repeat. The film is called Thomas Lee the Movie, Code of Honor. Yeah, so that's the title.
So, are you just gonna leave all the detail out, or?
I think I'll run into the plot maybe next week. I just wanted to announce the title first.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, so we've got that. That's the title of our film, and yeah, we'll be releasing. I'm gonna try to do a podcast a week. They might come out a little on different days based on my schedule, but I'm gonna try to do roughly one each week. And yeah, we'll go from there. If we got to slow down, we will. But as it is, one each week. And yeah, that's what's going on with me right now. I've been working on the script, developing fight scenes for the first movie. My first feature-length movie. We're looking at the podcast. We got Kyle on. We planned that. And that's what's going on right now. Maybe I'll write in my blog. But yeah, that's just what's going on in my sphere. So yeah, and the only other thing I want to say, first of all, before we continue, is fuck Adobe. First of all, because they just thought it would be a brilliant idea in Adobe Audition, which is their recording suite, not to include multiple USB microphone interface support, with their explanation being that Windows itself does not nicely support anyway, natively multiple USB interfaces. So Adobe's like, well, because Windows doesn't do it and it's hard, we're not going to include it. Which is stupid. I don't know why.
And I honestly do not feel like sharing such an opinion. I use Adobe a lot, but for something, I don't know. Adobe just seems so advanced. I'm surprised they don't do.
Yeah, that just because it's hard and not easy doesn't mean you can't include something that should be so standard. Especially because we spend already a couple $100s for the people who do pay for your software, because I didn't pay for it. So
yeah.
But the people who do pay for it, like Chad paid through school and got a discount. But anyway, the people who buy your software are spending a couple $100 just to get your software, if not 1,000 or more, depending on which suite they get and how much of your software they buy. So asking them to also be sure to have industry standard equipment like, having a mixer and, like 1/8-inch microphones is a little bit of a dick move. So, yeah.
I mean, not to, piss on Adobe, but it's just nice to have some of those features. Of course, I do understand that Adobe is mainly for Mac, and I understand that Mac is...
Well, no, Adobe is like multi-platform. It used to actually only be Windows.
It's multi-platform now, and yeah, I'm just saying...
Adobe, it's good. but it costs too much money. I don't like the fact that Adobe Audition doesn't have something that should basically be a basic standard. And I don't like the fact that they've gone Creative Cloud now. I think the Creative Cloud is just another way to make money. We don't have the infrastructure to support it technology-wise. I just don't think it's good. I think you're basically taking a little bit of a piss, Adobe, on basically people who've been supporting your Creative Cloud and Creative Studio, not Creative Cloud. You've taken a little piss on them and just said, hey, thanks for supporting our software. Now we're just going to go and make more money.
But other than that,
Yeah, either way, I'm not paying for it anyway, Adobe, so no big deal. It's not like anyone from Adobe is going to listen to this anyway. Yeah, so that's my little rant. We'll get that out of the way. So, yeah. Okay, we'll switch gears now, and we're going to talk to our guest now, Kyle Wright, and we're going to learn a little bit about him. I've known Kyle since junior high, and yeah, I mean, I've known him for quite a while, and we've been good friends for most of it anyway, up until this point.
Yeah, if you listen to his previous podcast, you would know a little bit of the story. Now, I'm not going to go into my story just yet, but definitely, if you listen to his podcast, you've learned a part of me, a little bit of me already. And probably a lot of people who are listening to this are actually not familiar with my channel, so they probably don't know a little bit of the little things I did previously. But before I go into my story, basically, I'm going to let you...
Yeah, so, I mean, I've known Kyle since junior high, and, I mean, he's been a really good friend since then. And, yeah, I think he was the first person who contacted me after the first podcast was done to, give me some feedback and let me know what he thought of the podcast. First, to acknowledge that he even heard the podcast. As far as I know, people have watched the podcast, but no one besides Kyle has actually come up to me and said, oh, hey, well, I like this, I like that. I remember, X, that kind of stuff, talk about it. So far, Kyle was the first person really to come up to me and talk about it. No one else has actually personally talked to me about what podcast. They've acknowledged that it exists, maybe, but yeah. So anyway, I thought it'd be fun to have him on, especially since he's such an old, good friend. So yeah, I'll let Kyle get into it. So Kyle, tell us a little bit about, who you are and your childhood, and let us know a little bit about yourself.
All right, so I'll do it as,
briefly as possible, yeah.
Briefly, as efficiently as possible. So I'll start back from, I don't really want to start back from when I was born, because one, that's boring, and two, it was kind of a rough start at the beginning. Not like bad life, just slight difficulty, because when I was born, doctors diagnosed me with, they thought I had autism, to say the least, and aprixia. Aprixia was true, autism was a mistake, basically. And anyway, early in my childhood, I went to the Progress Center to basically learn to talk, to learn to interact, communicate, and all that, which a lot of people don't actually know that. And went to the Boys and Girls Club to be with people, but I never really got along with people because either I never really made sense to anyone, or when I tried to make friends, they'd pelt rocks at me and then I'd punch them in the face. No exception to that.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a bad arrangement. You pelt rocks at me, I pelt my fist at your face.
Yeah. Although it wasn't really violent, it was only like a few.
No, I mean, that's the thing.
As a kid, you don't know.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just something I wanted to add to that is I know a lot of kids that may look violent or troubled really are just misunderstood and the product of, wrong place, wrong time. For me personally, it was whenever I got in trouble for either losing my temper in class or, getting in a physical altercation with someone. This was mainly in elementary school. It was always me reacting to someone else really pushing me over the line. Sometimes and kids know. I mean, that's why they're doing it to get a reaction. They know they'll get a reaction, and they push a little bit too far. And I always like to believe that people have boundaries. So when you push them over those boundaries, or you start, really bullying them, you have to take a stand. And when you do, it just seems to me that a lot of educators, whether it's preschool, elementary, junior high, high school even, they always seem to choose a reactor, like the reactor always gets in more trouble. The person who actually responds, reacts, the last person to do anything in a bullying situation is always the one who gets punished the most. I don't know what it is. I'm sure that's what it seems like to me, like what that might be leading down to. For me, that's what I noticed early on was whenever I did something like bad, like whether I lost my temper or I hit someone or something like that. It was I don't do that. I didn't really snap at anyone just for no reason, but people did come and pick on me and bully on me. And then when I did react and try to, get them to stop bothering me, I'd always get in trouble for that. And then it always seemed like the principals would never address them. Sometimes they wouldn't even talk to the instigators, which I found was really stupid. But yeah, keep going, Kyle.
All right. So yeah, I mean, sometimes that was the case, and when someone's bullied, sometimes they don't do anything about it. Sometimes they're pretty quiet about it because sometimes they want to fit in. And then there was kids such as us. Some in a way we wanted to fit in, but sometimes we didn't really tolerate a lot of crap because that's who we were, and we just had bad temperament. Sometimes, not everybody's perfect, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
No, I mean, kids at that stage, I like to think kids are just cruel to begin with, not like in cruel, like torture, sadistic way, but they're cruel in the sense that they make fun of people for being different, they don't have the same kind of like social kind of faux pas guidance or, respectfulness that even like more mature, like teenagers, adults start to develop more quickly. Yeah. They just don't have any of that because they're kids. They're cruel kids that they don't know that what they're doing actually hurts someone. Even if they do, they don't realize the true significance. The problem is, I think there needs to be a way to handle bullying, but at the same time, it can't be, it can't be reactor only, and it can't be like we demonize bullies, because I don't believe in the traditional scenario where, what I'm talking about, like the 80s sitcoms or like the family, sitcoms where it's like that traditional bully that no one bullies that bully. It's just that bully is like the main proprietor of bullying, and there's no one else that bullies. He just and the victims themselves are classical victims that never do anything wrong. They never bully anybody else. They're just victims without any, they don't deserve it. They haven't caused any, they haven't caused any trouble themselves. It doesn't work that way. Kids bully kids, and then those kids go to bully other kids. It is kind of a vicious cycle.
Yeah, so basically a normal cliche that you see through most.
It's not the normal cliche in the sense that, it's not one bully that bullies everyone and doesn't get bullied himself, and it's not one victim who's always getting bullied and is never a part of the bullying himself. Kids bully kids. Kids are mean to kids, and we shouldn't demonize bullying, but we should, bullies themselves, but we should address bullying in a way that isn't reactor only when it comes to punishment, or isn't turning bullies into these kind of monsters that you should feel ashamed if you're bullying, but you shouldn't feel like it's the end of the world because you bullied someone, or that you yourself should only be guilty. Because I think every kid in some way is a little bit guilty of bullying. Maybe you're not the worst bully on the block, but if you've picked on a kid, said something mean, or excluded someone, you have bullied someone. And there's no distinction. There's no class. There's no category bully. There's no category. He's a category 3 bully. No, you're a bully if you pick on anyone, you're mean to anyone, or you exclude anyone, and that's it. So that's how we got to look at it.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Sorry, we just went on a tangent there with bullying, and but yeah, keep going. So you were talking about how you were misdiagnosed with autism early on in your childhood, and you were at an institute, a special institute for that kind of education. So go on about that.
Yeah. Thank you for the recap. Yeah. So basically, cut away from that whole thing. I started out in Alderney. Alderney was an elementary school right in Nova Scotia, and I'm still in Nova Scotia today, so obviously I didn't get too far. In fact, I live still pretty close to my old elementary, just a little whiles away, but pretty close. So starting out in elementary, I had a few friends starting out. There was my old friend Ben, I had Gavin, Jocelyn. Who else did I have in that point? There was also Ryan, Nicole. There was a whole bunch.
And was this preschool or was this elementary school?
Elementary.
Sorry, yeah, elementary.
Yeah. So I had them for a little while. And to be honest, a lot of my childhood I don't exactly remember. I'm just pulling out the main points that were pretty significant. So about grade 3, I met a guy named Matt, who as of right now is actually one of my bestest friends for over 13 years now.
Yeah, Matt's a cool guy.
Yeah, because I've known him since grade 3. Later the next year, I met a guy named John, and then his roommate Josh, because he also lived with him for a little while. And knowing Matt, John, and Josh, I kind of moved away from those previous friends, because what ended up happening was, with the first friends I made, they were more in the, I don't want to say popular, but they were more liked, in comparison to me would be the best.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, man.
Yeah. So they kind of moved one way, and I moved into another way, because I found that these other friends fit with me a lot more. And that's what pretty much anyone would do. If you fit with them, you tend to move on, or that's just how it is.
Yeah.
So, I want to see if there's anything else I can think of before moving on.
Yes, you're talking about elementary school. I just did want to add something. I don't mean to backtrack, but how was it? Like, how did they discover that you didn't have autism? Like, what was the realization there on their part?
Oh yeah. Well, what happened was when they diagnosed me with that, they also diagnosed me with apraxia, and it wasn't a topic that I was really going to pop into, but they basically said that he's never going to learn. He's never going to be able to talk, communicate, and the university fund that you had for him, basically, it's probably just best for you to get rid of it, because there's no real hope for him. So it took about 3 years to, after some progress center and taking me on trips. That was the thing. What really got me to who I was. It still seemed like that I had autism and apraxia right up until I was 3 years old. Because we went to Disney World, came back, and that's when I had my first pet. And his name was Sookie.
It was his cat,
my favorite cat. He was my best friend. And actually that's what got me talking, because I also liked Lion King at the time.
Oh yeah, Lion King.
And anyway, the cat just kept crying and crying and crying when we first brought him back. And my mom was like, "Can you please stop meowing?"
Yeah, I think I remember you telling me this story.
And she was like, "Oh, what a big Sookie baby." And I guess that's when I said Sookie, because that was the only word I knew what to say. And that was actually one of my first few words, and then I followed in with saying, "I love you, Mom," and "Mom, Dad." Just basic stuff like that, first few words. After that, I went into the Progress Center and learned from some of the teachers I had for a couple years.
Yeah.
And that's when I went to Alderney. So I had friends, but I didn't really know how to communicate all that well, so I guess that's why they moved off. And during school, grade primary to grade 6, I had an aide. I remember Bonnie, Miss M. I'm just going to call her Miss M.
Okay, yeah, that's cool.
And my last one was Bonnie. Yeah, another Bonnie, actually.
2 Bonnies, okay. No big deal.
So, basically, during the time, made a few friends. I stopped hanging out with them to move on with a group of new friends, and I kind of started learning for myself, and I started learning to talk more because I had friends to actually talk to, so I could practice. And at the end of grade 6, I went into junior high, not needing an aide, and that's when my mom, she kind of realized from the beginning when I started talking that there was hope. But junior high was definitely a realization that I was actually perfectly normal. I just had a little bit of trouble learning, so I still had the apraxia part, just the autism thing never...
I just have one quick question. What is apraxia? I've never heard of that condition.
Apraxia is just another learning disability.
Oh, okay.
It's not an extremely huge thing with
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. As far as I was willing to go to know, really. And autism was a whole other story.
Yeah, well, I think one of the issues was autism. I don't know, my history isn't that too good with autism, the history behind autism, I should say. But if I'm not mistaken, the 90s, it was more of an explorative time with autism. They hadn't really, I mean, they've come, I think, a long way in terms of, treatment and, counseling with that and being able to, help kids that have autism and be able to diagnose it more correctly. Because I feel like in the 90s, that would be something that, especially like child disorders, was still something real. I think the definition for that probably came out around the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. Someone will have to correct me on my history there, but it was probably something that they weren't exactly very clear on yet. They were still studying. They didn't really know exactly. And I mean, that again, we get put back a lot with stupid people like Jenny McCarthy that suggest that it's like vaccines that cause things like that, which we all know it doesn't.
So that being said, assuming that's correct, it was a very new thing, as you said.
Yeah.
And if they weren't sure, then they weren't sure. But for them to make that kind of a big mistake and be like, oh, just get rid of his university money, he has no hope. That's kind of...
No, that's bad. I mean...
And that was why...
Doctors do make mistakes, but, I mean, that is a big mistake, and that's one of the things with, especially because studying children and children's disorders with that kind of stuff and conditions. I mean, it's something we've come a long way, but back then it would have been something that would be really hard to diagnose. Same thing with things like ADHD and ADD, I think, attention deficit disorder, all these acronyms, is that, in the early stages when they first came out with it, diagnosing would be more difficult. Nowadays, it's getting a lot better. Doctors are able to recognize it a lot more, and treatment is a lot better. But it's obviously something that they'll have to keep working on for years to come.
And they also have Google, so
yeah,
it's a bonus, I guess.
I mean, it's not. I think it's terrible that they made that mistake, but doctors are human too. It's something we have to remember. Even though they do go through years of medical school, they are very well trained. They are very intelligent, but they're still humans at the end of the day. And medicine is not a perfect science by any means. It's something that takes a lot of time to perfect, and it is not perfect by any means.
But until then, you just take it as it is, and I mean, that's what I learned.
Yeah, well, it's great that your mother never gave up on you, and she still believes strongly, and that you had those great support, like those, the kind of aides and those kind of people that did come along and help you, because that's what kids like that need. Is they need support through this kind of tough time, and oftentimes it's incredible the kind of progress you can get with things, or as you discovered, the diagnosis might be wrong. So you should, while doctors medically might not believe in something, parents themselves have to believe. And that's the wonder of humanity itself, is that sometimes things that don't seem possible do end up happening, and then we do later discover why it's possible, or we discover a mistake was made. And that's why you can't give up hope on things like that, is because humanity and science itself is not so black and white that even that it can just be broken down to statistics and easy diagnosis. Sometimes mistakes happen, and that's why you got to keep believing all the time, right? Anyway, so tell us more about you talked about elementary school. Do you want to talk more about that, or do you want to talk about junior high now?
I'll probably pop into that, because I mean, around the time grade 6 came around, I was completely moved away from the first friends, and I was still friends with Matt, John, and Josh, and at the time I was also Jade. There wasn't a lot about elementary, I should say, that was overall interesting. Kind of goes into junior high, I would have to say, is when it gets slightly interesting. So, going into junior high, this is when Josh moved. Another guy named Cody was also part of our group.
Yeah, Cody Day. We'll get into that later.
But he was he was also part of our group too. I think he was only there for grade 7 before he moved to.
Yeah.
There somewhere.
Pugwash. I didn't even believe that was the real name of a place, Pugwash, but it was.
I had to look it up. It was.
I didn't believe it at first. Yeah.
That just shows how much I actually go search these things.
Yep.
So yeah, junior high. I had John with me, and I had Jade with me, starting out. And I'm trying to think. I had Miss Anthony for grade 7.
Yeah.
I forget who was all in the class. I mean, a lot of it was actually...
That was that English class, right?
It was.
Yeah, I probably was in your class because I was in Miss Anthony's English class too.
Yeah. And, yeah, you might have been, because I'm trying to think if you were in grade 8 or not, but... grade 9, I know you weren't.
Yeah.
We might have been in different homerooms, but I did have Miss Anthony, I feel like, for English, or at least homeroom for 1 year. Yeah, but I mean, I remember meeting you. It was probably because I met Josh. He was one of the earliest people I met in junior high.
This is probably how I met you. I remember this.
Yeah. So I met Josh first, this mutual friend, someone that Kyle had met when he was younger as a kid, in elementary school. But I met Josh in junior high. One of the first few people, because, going on a grade 6 for me, it was one of those things where I mentioned in the first podcast how I literally felt like I had no friends leaving, and that I did make a couple of friends and amend a few relationships at the end. But I felt like, well, I wasn't someone who was the most loved or beloved in elementary school. I was like, I'm not really sure how I'm going to handle junior high. But Josh was one of the first people I met. Seemed like a cool guy. We did have a common interest. In fact, I'm pretty sure I knew that this was going to turn out pretty well, because I remember, like, in gym class one time, I was sitting next to him in the lineup, for some bullshit something with gym, who knows what it was, and he turned to me, and I think he showed me, like, a foil Inuyasha card. Like, it's the same one you can get. I don't know what it was that it came in.
Might have been the special for, like, the Inuyasha movie.
I think, yeah, like, one of the movies came... One of the movies came with, like, the foil card, so that's how I had it, and he mentioned it, and I'm like, it was something I started watching, I think, his elementary school, grade 6, like 5 or 6, I started watching, so it was a common interest for me, and, that's how it started, and he was a really cool guy, and it was just great to meet someone in junior high. There wasn't really much pressure, because I didn't feel like I was being judged, so... Yeah, we met through him, and what had happened, I don't know if Kyle still remembers the story, but I still remember it pretty vividly, was... Yeah. Josh had gotten in a fight with Cody Day, and I don't know what it was. I don't remember who got suspended exactly, but I remember there was something I think he got, maybe it might have been a black eye or something. I asked him what had happened, and he said, oh, well, this guy Cody Day, and we got in a fight, and, and I was like, oh, what an asshole. Josh just seems like a cool guy. Who would want to just start a fight with him? This Cody Day guy must be an asshole. So, the next couple of days, I'd seen this guy off in the corner, pretty quiet, not necessarily, didn't look very happy. He had a little bit of just like a frown. I was like, I don't know, I think, because I had thought that you were Cody Day. I don't know why.
That's what it was. Yeah. Josh almost introduced you to me.
Yeah.
And since he never really properly introduced me, you thought I was...
I don't know, because I think he had mentioned something too, that how the guy who had essentially, I guess, beaten him, I don't want to say beaten him up because it didn't seem that bad to me, but got in that fight with him and caused all that those problems for him was someone, I guess, that was friends with him beforehand. I thought, and I'd also known that Josh was good friends with John. That's how I met John in the first place, was through Josh, because they were roommates at the time. But I was like, that guy's hanging out with John. Maybe that's Cody Day. What an asshole. So my first impression, though not your fault, completely Cody Day's fault, was that you were an asshole because you were Cody Day and that you had basically fought Josh and caused all these trouble. But then I found out that you weren't Cody Day and that you turned out to be a cool guy.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the basis how we knew each other, how we started talking. I'm not completely sure.
It's funny because a lot of these people I met through mutual friends, like John was a mutual friend of Josh, and Kyle was a mutual friend of,
John and Josh.
Yeah, so that's how I kind of met them, and then I got to know a lot of things. I think what sold me, because I knew you were a cool guy and we had similar interests and we got along fine, but...
I remember this one, if I can interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
I will never forget. I don't remember how we talked. I don't remember how... I somewhat remember how we saw each other, but I definitely remember the day we started hanging out. It was a day, I remember this, I went to Walmart. It was, do you remember Penhorn Mall?
Yeah, I remember the Penhorn Mall, Walmart.
Well, Penhorn Mall back in the time, that was the cool place to chill. It was really fun. I would still go back.
I had fucking pretzel maker. That was good shit.
I mean, if it was still in existence, I mean, pretzel makers are still around, but that whole mall itself it's never the same. It's never going to be the same.
No, I go to Dartmouth Crossing. I never get that feeling. I go to Micmac. I don't get the same feeling either.
Yeah, because it's just, you hang out there. That's where you do,
yeah.
But that being said, oh boy, where was I going to go with that?
The first time we met and started hanging out.
Anyway, there was a Walmart in there. And so I went in, and they had these Lego toys at the time. They were like a robot thing you could build.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, they were the coolest thing. I forget the name.
Would they be are they the robotic ones with little controls that you can program? Or is it just like huge ass robots?
You could put the little character inside, the little Lego character.
Oh yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about now.
So it wasn't Gundam and all that other stuff. Anyway, I bought one of those, and I think I'd given Tommy my number, and it was either me that called him or he called me. But anyway, I talked to him about the Lego figure that I bought, and he was like, "Hey, do you actually want to come over?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know how I'm going to get there. I've never been to Portland Estates before." That's where he lived. I lived.
Yeah, I used to live. I live in Russell Lake now, but I used to live in Phase 1 of Portland Estates. Long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. So I somehow managed to get a drive though, and we hung out that day. I don't know if we had a sleepover that night or not, but I don't forget. I mean, it was a simple split house.
Yeah, it was a split entry. It was not a bad house though. I mean, yeah.
And at the bottom, the bottom is where we usually hanged out. I mean, we went upstairs to go sit at the table and eat all.
But the basement used to be the coolest thing. Like the basement of my old. Oh yeah, my mom always makes huge ass. Even now, she still does. She makes huge ass snack trays.
Fruit and just a bunch of different things. Like, oh my god, never had this before. But basically we always chilled downstairs, and he had the entertainment center.
Yeah.
Nintendo 64 was. The
N64, later on PS2, like all the good stuff.
And all we did was we basically played games. There was actually a couple things we did, which was my favorite. This was one of my favorite points in junior high, though, I have to admit.
Oh, yeah. It was one of my favorite times, too. I mean, it was just chilling with Kyle was one of those things that was great. I mean, we could just do a bunch of crazy shit. I wouldn't have to worry about, when I'm hanging out with Kyle, I don't have to worry about what my parents think about my grades, how I'm doing in classes, how people are going to treat me. I just didn't have to worry about any of that stuff because Kyle would treat me well. I'd treat him well, and we were both good with that.
Yeah. I remember because this is where I first got my Facebook. So a lot of the time we just played video games, and we also had action figures. So I mean, I don't know what we were doing with them, but I mean, I don't know. I guess we kind of just looked at them really, but we also had lightsabers and all.
Oh yeah, lightsabers. Back when they used to be shitty plastic ones that cost way too much money.
Yeah. But I'm gonna go into another story.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
But also. We also just checked Facebook a lot because I remember this because
back when Facebook was cool and it was like a cool thing to actually get it and not everybody had it.
And everybody at least at one point tried out the "Are you interested?" application. Yeah,
I remember that.
Which is where I met one of these girls after my ex that I was dating in grade 8. And I do apologize for hopping everywhere, but you kind of get the point.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm trying to be as linear as possible.
Yeah, well, you know how it is.
Yeah, but there was a... So, yeah, the Are You Interested applications where I first met this girl who actually lived all the way in Cape Breton.
Yeah.
After, 40-plus girls. And I remember something I would always say to Tommy. I was like, man, Tommy, there's so many.
And I'd be like, fuck off, Kyle. I mean, because he would have, this inbox filled with hot chicks that would be like, yeah, I'm interested. And then me, it'd be like one. It'd be like one every once in a while.
And I'd be like,
I'll never forget how it went out. It was always like, man, Tommy, I have so many messages. I don't even...
I'm like, oh, I feel so bad for you. Oh.
Sorry.
I'm so sorry you have hot women showing interest in you.
Yeah, I feel so bad for you right now with all these women showing interest in you. And I kind of woke at him and realized that he was clearly being sarcastic, so we just never really bothered with that afterwards. But we did that a couple times, and sometimes it was just a joke.
Yeah. I mean, Are You Interested was essentially like a half-assed, eHarmony of the day for junior high kids, because you never had to say anything. There wasn't nude pics or anything like that.
Surprisingly, that was a lot more successful for me than anything else.
Yeah, that was funny times. Early Facebook was just hilarious.
Yeah, early Facebook was probably the best one ever, and that's probably why so many of those people hate the change.
I know, it's not as fun as it used to be.
No, but it's more.
Yeah.
It seems like all the good nostalgia is pretty much gone.
Yeah, well, it's just all these constant updates is killing it too, because by the time people get used to a new layout, there's a new fucking layout come out that everybody hates. Like, I don't like the new layout right now. And it's like, I'd finally, throughout the year, I was getting more and more adjusted to it, liking the features, and then they changed it again. Yeah.
So yeah, another story, what I was going to bring up with the lightsabers and all that.
Yeah, go ahead.
He always had toy guns. He had lightsabers.
Oh yeah, I still have like a whole fucking armory of weapons, toy weapons.
Still today, they're still kicking around.
Oh yeah.
In junior high, that was, you have no idea. Well, okay, so I'll put this in. So me, Tommy, and John were hanging out at one point, and I think we already had a couple sleepovers previously. Like after we got the three of us started hanging out with each other more.
Yeah.
We always go to John's and back to Tommy's, and sometimes at my house. But at Tommy's, we were, all of the stuff was in the laundry room / like storage.
Yeah, it was a half storage, half laundry room, because we had all the dishwashers, not the fucking dishwashers, the laundry machines, and we also had storage in there, which is where I put basically all my cool, like my whole armory of toys.
Yeah, but because it was so big, we could sit in there and hang out. So, and I think this was the point where Tommy was into the Back into the Future.
I watched Back to the Future first in junior high, and I fucking loved it because it's great. It was so creative, so entertaining, just awesome. Like stuff I would wish happened to me.
And there was other movies that me and John were watching too that we kind of liked. So we had this weird ass.
One day we decided, hey, what if the laundry room was a time machine? And we basically, what we did was me and Kyle and John would go back in time, but everywhere we'd go, John would end up offending the native people of where, like, he'd offend like the native or like the people. Basically, he'd offend. He was the one that always got into the. He would offend ethnic groups.
You didn't have to offend them.
Like he was just a token white guy that. That would basically he would pay for everything, and for some reason every single person would hate him, and we do that because John was not selling the role play. He was like, nope, there's no time travel. So wherever we went, we just basically say, all right, well, they hate John here, so they're gonna try to kill him.
The two worst things that happened for him in that time was, one, he got tied to the chair with a skipping rope and some duct tape. Yeah, I remember that. Because we had to pretend to be the enemies. Anyway, it was just a cool thing to do.
Yeah, and John was also the enemy. Like, he was basically the evil white guy in any time period we had traveled to.
He was just the asshole, really.
Yeah, really.
So, I could see why he
probably didn't enjoy
stays
that.
home now.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't blame him one bit when it comes to that. And the other one was, for censor's sake, Bleepahontas.
Yeah. He's the one who really can repeat that, but he's not going to, so you're not going to know what that bleep was. Yeah, you can take a guess.
I don't get it. I mean, it was during the Colombian, the First Nation period, but yeah, it was the intimidating black guy, basically.
I don't even know how it worked out, but it was hilarious.
He was there, so Bleepahontas. I don't know where that came from, and
I don't know.
Look at it, it's funny, but it's so strange that we thought about that as kids.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was the guy that ultimately tied him up and tortured him, as we pretended.
Yeah.
So, anyway, the time machine thing was pretty fun, actually.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
And, in fact, I think that was I don't know if that was a night that we decided to stay the night or not.
Yeah, it might have been.
Other than that, we played Nintendo 64 a lot, like Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon Stadium.
Yeah, Pokemon Stadium, the first one. Yeah. Well, the first one in North America. Let's not get into the fact that there's a whole nother earlier Pokemon Stadium in Japan. Let's not.
We'll not jump into that.
Nope.
So, during junior high, this is where, I mean, a lot of things changed already, but things started changing a bit again. because that's actually when I had my first girlfriend, and she was actually my friend. She's still my friend today. I'm not going to bring up her name because that's just, Anyway, we started dating in grade 8 because she was just moving. She was about to move, and she liked me for a little bit, and I actually liked her for a little while, so I was like, hey, you want to go ahead and... I mean, obviously, the thing happened, and bam. My first real... Well, I don't want to say real relationship, but my first little crush and my first date. Anyway, 4 months later, just wasn't working out long distance, and it was time to move on. And grade 9 was the last year. Because I think mainly... I don't know. Grade 9 just wasn't a really great year.
No. It was, for me, like, I noticed, like, it was a tough year because I was kind of, half-assing courses because I just didn't really give a shit, especially PDR. But, yeah, like, I wasn't really, I myself personally, I wasn't really caring about it. But then my parents were like, if you don't get, if you don't end with a 90 average, I mean, we're going to have to put you in summer school, which, thinking back, is absolutely ridiculous, putting a kid in summer school if they didn't have a 90 average. But I was really stressed out about that, trying to get the grades, and, I was, junior high was messed up, trying to get girls to like you was weird, too. It was just a fucked up year.
Although, there's something about that, actually. At the end of grade 9 led to pretty much the beginning of my high school year. Because when we had the boat competition, we had to build a cardboard boat.
Oh god, I hated that. Hated it.
Yeah, it's a good thing they had me to construct the boat that actually fucking worked. I mean, Christ. That's one thing I should have brought up, was that I'm a visual learner and I like to create things. I like to craft, and I knew things in other ways that other people didn't. So I guess that's how it worked out for me. Sure, I turned out a little bit normal, but, I learned a whole different way, and everybody does. So, yeah, during that time of building the boats, there was this one girl that I was talking to, and her name was actually Robin. I don't know if you remember her.
I do remember Robin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, that's when we started talking initially, and again, I don't remember how. I just don't tend to remember half the stuff through my younger years.
I do remember, though, you dating Robin. I don't remember how that all started, but I do remember you telling me about that.
Yeah. During the summer, we talked a lot more through MSN, because everybody used...
Back in the day, I miss MSN because that was cool. You could talk to people.
But I don't miss it either.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of...
fucked up shit.
May I say ghetto-y, cray. A lot of cray shit.
Cray shit, yeah, okay.
That shit was cray.
That shit was cray.
Right now?
That shit was cray. I don't know, they say crazy now. Kids aren't that lazy.
I hope not.
Yeah.
Anyway, a lot of weird things always happen on MSN, and I'm sure that's happened to everyone at some point.
Yeah.
But I did talk to her through there, because that's all I really had. I didn't have a cell phone then, because, I wasn't one of those 9th graders that had an iPhone.
I didn't have a cell phone until I think it was like the end of high school. I didn't have a cell phone.
Sure, for me it was Christmas of grade 10.
Yeah.
Someone in grade 10 is when I got my phone.
I don't remember when. I actually know if it was around grade 10 for you, I would have been early, because I remember I ended up getting mine a little bit earlier, but you ended up getting a better one later on anyway.
Yeah. So, yeah, anyway, with Robin, I'd go visit her after she was done work and all that, a couple times, and during high school. That's when things really started, because I started seeing everyone I used to know again, and it was nice seeing everyone, but then I also made, a few friends. So grade 10 was definitely interesting for me. I started out with actually asking Robin out. And she was excited, and I felt excited because she was excited. Well, she seemed excited, and that meant a lot to me. But 6 days later, she dumped me.
Yeah, it was a short-lived relationship. Even I remember that.
Dumped me for another guy there.
So, whatever.
Yeah. But again, that's not a big deal at all.
Nah, not at all.
So, basically, that year, I still had John with me, Jade moved. So basically, John, Tommy, and Chad.
And also Blake. We have to add, but
Chad, John, and Tommy were my close and best friends, and then Blake
was there.
I was good friends with Tommy and I was good friends with Chad, but they didn't talk to each other at the time.
Well, we were on, like, we were mixed, like, we were frenemies, like, we basically were at our throats, or just, you know, we were, it was an odd time for us, and like I mentioned in the last podcast, if it hadn't been for Blake, we probably wouldn't be as good of friends now. Yeah. But yeah, keep going.
This is how, Blake came into my life, is because how Chad and Blake were friends.
Yeah.
So basically he came in and he seemed like a good guy at first. And on and off, I mean, even though I know you had a big despite for him.
He rubbed me the wrong way from day one. And when it happens, it's not something you can really fix.
But I mean, with the people I met, I was never really overly judgmental, so I gave him a chance. So Blake was pretty okay for the first little while, and then he started getting a little...
He got more cocky and more douchebaggy. And I mean, just his demeanor changed a lot, because like I mentioned in the first podcast, he was good friend. He was actually probably really good to Chad in the beginning, and a prick, but at least good to Chad, and then he became a dick to Chad, and that's when we were like, okay, Blake, now we've got to knock you down in shape.
Yeah, like I said, things were fine at the beginning with him until around that point, but then he just started getting very cocky with everyone. Not that I want to, backtalk him now.
No, but this is just speaking honestly.
This is just like the experience back then, because everybody always at least had that one guy.
Yeah, Blake was that one guy that you're like, he tells big boastful stories, thinks his shit doesn't stink, that kind of stuff that you're always like, oh, good for you.
Okay, I'm just gonna go over here and eat my lunch that my mother packed me for.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just remember, like, each lunch we'd basically be there, like, basically what it is, past the math wing, there's a little corridor that leads to a set of doors, like there's a hallway there. Yeah, the side doors, we always would eat there and chill.
We had that corner.
Yeah, that was our corner. Yeah. Nobody else's. Anyone else who tries to suggest that was their corner is lying and full of shit.
Yeah, that was like the corner. It was like a pirate ship.
We marked our territory.
Like, Blake might even piss there.
Blake literally, like, we were like, we just come here a lot. Blake actually probably literally pissed there.
Yeah.
Mark's territory.
But just to say. So basically that was my group. That was the group that I hanged out with more.
Yeah.
But during that year too, I had Neil in my science class. So how I met my other friends, the two that I'm going to bring up.
Yeah.
So basically we were in science class and we had to be in a group for making some kind of experiment. So I was stuck with a group with Neil. And do you remember Gabe? He was...
Yeah, Gabe. I loved Gabe. He was my Asian buddy. My only Asian buddy.
Him, and there was this one kid named Alan, and he's actually redhead, he's a ginger.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody goes by that, but you know what, he's by now, he's just my friend. I don't really care to think about that. Although if he's like, you're black, I'm like, you're ginger. Which even though it's just kind of ironic, because I'm more white than black, and Alan didn't really display the stereotypes that gingers have.
I don't think anyone really lives that much up to stereotypes. I mean, they're stereotypes for a reason, because they're probably true for
some reason.
I mean, it must be they observed it for one person and took it to be true, and then found people who match that. And obviously there will be people that, but I don't try to live up to stereotypes, because at the end of the day, it won't make me more Chinese. Like, I could come in wearing a fucking Mao collared suit, like one of the collarless ones from like the stereotypical like Fu Manchu things. I could have Fu Manchu. I could use chopsticks exclusively. I could only speak in Mandarin. It wouldn't make me more Asian. It would, even if I lived to the T of the stereotype, it wouldn't make me any more Asian. And I don't think you should ever try to live by your so-called race code. You should appreciate your culture's, history, but at the same time, be you. And that's why I have a lot of heroes and icons that aren't the same color, even same culture, but they're icons because they inspire me, and I just don't you know what I mean? I just don't try to live by some kind of cultural standard or stereotype. I just be me, and if I'm not a great representation by someone else's eyes, whatever, right?
And dare I say, very much unlike Blake.
Blake was literally a redneck, and which is weird because he was never born in Texas. He's probably even never smelled the southern states, let alone been in one.
That's just a whole...
I think it's because he thought it was funny and that people were calling him a redneck and calling him, a southern boy, and then it was just easy for him because he's not from the South. I don't know where this shit is coming from. He just Yosemite Sam that shit. I don't know what happened.
But that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
We neither choose to neglect or bring up another.
Let's not say... Wait, we still have one called Blake Jokes, like a podcast called Blake Jokes in the future. We'll come back to that someday.
Well, that's something else for one's sake.
Yeah.
Again, not to diss him, but I mean that was just our experience.
Whenever I talk about Blake, it's honestly not even with malintent. It's just me being honest, my honest opinion, no malintent, just honestly what I think of the guy, which is not good.
So yeah, away from that, so anyway, I hanged out with those four: Chad, Tommy, John, and Blake. So that started changing naturally near the end of grade 10 a bit, because what happened was, the year went by, and there was this girl, again,
it's always a girl.
Yeah, the girl always seemed to be the problem. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, it's the girl's fault.
And you know what? Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I'm not going to bring up her name either, but anyway, we hung over a little while because she wasn't talking to her friends. And,
Right.
nothing that was going on between us as a group, but she just didn't have anyone to hang out with. And I guess that's what sort of caused the problem, was because I moved away a little bit.
Yeah, well, just speaking from my perspective, what was happening like near the end of grade 10, most of grade 11, was that because you were seeing her and that, because she was a part of a completely different friend group than me and Chad and a lot of your other friends. So you were spending a lot more time with them, I found, and less time with us, and it just became smaller and smaller over time. I mean, I don't hold anything against you for that now, but back then I was pretty annoyed by it. I was like, I mean, we've been friends with Kyle since like junior high. I mean, what the fuck is this guy doing?
Some girl's taking her away from her.
I mean, I don't want to be like the classic, bros before hoes crap. Like, I'm not about that, but it just felt weird that there's nothing wrong with spending time with your girlfriend, and it just so happened that we were in the same friend group. So I felt like he just didn't have any time for us, and I mean, now thinking back, I mean, things like that happen, right?
Yeah, which is, I mean, to think about it, I mean, I'd never go back to, spending more time with a girl than my friends, because that's
Dumb.
Yeah, it is gonna.
Nothing no offense, man, but
It is just dumb.
you don't let the tricks change you. Nothing but tricks and hoes, right?
It's just the high school thing versus real life.
Right.
You just gotta, you make mistakes and you learn, kind of thing. And this is definitely a good example of that. So, I did date her, and I actually ended up dating her for a year and a couple months.
I
don't have to tell you.
Yeah, mostly.
Worst year in, probably 4 months ever.
Mm-hmm.
Because, number one, I wasn't really seeing all my friends, so...
Yeah.
I mean, I seen John quite... I seen John when I could. But Tommy and Chad, I mean, I saw them probably a good amount at the time, but every time Kate was like... okay, I brought up her name, so you know what...
Kyle, if you heard the first podcast I did, I was just dropping names at the end. Don't even worry about it.
I know. But anyway, you know the name. So anyway, she... every time she wanted to hang out, she would text me, and then when it didn't go her way, I'm gonna break up with you, blah, blah, blah.
That sounds about right.
Oh my god damn it. Okay. It's like, well guys, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to go down. I was like, oh, come on, Kyle, come on. Yeah. So I mean, it was just high school. That's kind of what happened. That was kind of the basis of grade 10 leading into grade 11.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, basically the whole year of grade 11, because I was there during that time. Towards the end of grade 11, going into grade 12, because nothing happened other than Kate.
Yep.
Came out with the, dare I say, the pirate crew on the second floor.
Yeah.
That was all that happened was...
Well, I mean, just what I
my life was gone.
Yeah, what I noticed, it wasn't even. It just you change to different friend groups, which is what happens when you get involved with someone. You spend a lot of time with them. Is sometimes your group of friends or your time changes. But the only reason I was a little annoyed, and maybe Chad too. I'm sure someday you can ask Chad about it, and he'll tell you. Not the same thing, because Chad's a lot more understanding than someone like me. I'm a bit of a prick when it comes to things like this. But I just felt that, you kind of just abandoned us, and nothing personal. But I mean, I just felt like you you changed a little bit. Like you were I remember back then you were more into the scene culture a little. Like you weren't a full-blown scene boy, but you know what I'm saying. I just didn't really understand. I was like, is this because of Kate? Is this something you're interested in? I couldn't really tell, and unfortunately,
I was into that phase a little bit, but just in the end, it never really fit me because
it's okay if it's any concept.
the way that they actually worked on me was that if the back end of my skinny jeans were actually underneath my ass, basically.
Yeah, they're designed that way.
Yeah, and that's how they were just basically designed, and that fit me a lot better. And I was pretty attractive for her.
Well, you have no homo, but you have a nice ass.
There's the joke right there.
Yeah.
There's two in the row. So, anyway, after grade 12 came around, and things started changing yet again, because around the time me and Kate broke up, we didn't bother. And this is when actually during grade 11, grade 12 more so, I didn't really hang out with John all that much. A little bit, but not as much as I did with Val and James at that point. So, where am I going to go with this?
I don't know. Just your grade 12 year, yeah.
So yes, I hung out with Val and James a lot more at the beginning, and during the summer before grade 12, there was a girl named Morgan who hung out with James.
Yeah.
And through Morgan, I met another girl. So I'm going to try not to bring up her name.
Just do it, man. No one's gonna get mad. You're talking very honestly in a pretty respectful manner, so it's not like me where I'm basically taking a big dump on whoever I put on the podcast. Well, whoever I talk about on the podcast, yeah.
For anyone in concern, it was her name was Brina, and so I met her through Morgan.
Right.
And, so one day Alan had a party at his house, and he was like, "Hey, let's bring everyone down." So there was like Christy, Ron, Kyle Guignard, who got hit by a car the day I was hanging out with to visit Morgan, and I watched him get hit. I'm like, yeah, what? And I was bawling my eyes out, and it was a terrible, terrible scene. That was completely off topic.
Nice sound effects, though.
Yeah. So, anyway, aside from that, it was a whole group of us, and Brina was there too. And in order for her to get a hold of her parents, she got my number. And one night, I was just sitting at home, and she called me up, and we talked for 40 minutes. So, another thing I should mention was, at the end of grade 11 was when things were kind of disastrous.
Yeah, me and Chad, first me, then Chad, unfortunately, because usually whenever trouble happens with me, poor Chad has to take some of the blame too. But, yeah, it was getting more and more rocky because Kyle was spending less and less time ignoring us more, and eventually I just had it. I was like, dude, if you don't want to be friends with us, just let us know and we won't burden you. We gotten in this huge argument, nasty things were said on both ends, I'd say.
It was.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into that, but...
And I felt that was a lot of irrationality.
Yeah, well, both of us, we weren't really thinking. I was thinking, I'm like, well, this guy's basically dissing me by spending time with just his friends and girlfriend, and each time we try to do anything with him, just saying no. So I'm like, he's basically abandoning us, and on his end, I'm like, he's probably thinking, here are these whiny dickheads that keep bothering me. I'm just trying to, manage my girlfriend and a new group of friends, and it's not my fault they're not involved with that kind of stuff. On both of our ends, I guess it was just a lack of maturity, and we just weren't thinking straight at that time. But that's what happens when you're in a high school and you have a girlfriend. It just shit gets weird, man.
Yeah. But when I started dating Brina, I had that group of friends, and at the beginning of grade 12, I remember because I seen that you became president.
Yeah, I remember.
I saw you and I wanted to say hi to you, but then you looked kind of You're like, oh God.
Part of me was worried because when you were coming up, I was like, I wasn't, because we hadn't really talked that much. I mean, we weren't really great friends at that point. I wasn't sure what you were gonna say, so I was hesitant when you were walking up to me. But then you were nice. You let me know. Let's just forget about that. I mean, I was like, cool, yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, nobody's perfect.
Yeah, everyone makes mistakes.
Sometimes you just gotta move on.
Yeah, forget about it. I mean, it was dumb that we got in that argument.
Not that we hung out anymore since at that point.
Yeah.
But we tried.
One of those things was, I mean, me too. One of those things is, well, I was involved with student council, so that was keeping me really busy. Like, literally, I didn't really have much time in lunchtimes because I was always trying to organize things and didn't help when other people in the student council weren't doing their shit. That didn't help either. But I found I was really busy, especially during lunchtimes, coordinating things. I had to take some time off from classes, like just leave class to go do stuff. And I mean, Kyle was in a different friend group at that time, and although we had patched things up, we weren't really hanging out at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure we had to focus on school, especially.
Yeah, I mean, that last year is tough, and I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, and whatever's easiest for you is what you gotta do at that point.
Yeah. So other than that, I'll try to sum it up, the rest up to the...
Oh, well, I just want to let you know, since we're at the hour mark, that you can take the next 30 minutes. I don't really care. It's up to just whatever feels comfortable, no pressure, right? Just keep going.
Yeah. Well, basically just to sum it up the best way I can. So, grade 12 rolled around the best it could. I mean, I was dating Brina.
Yeah.
And I was still hanging with Val and Jane's no different.
Yeah.
Although me and John had our tensions. So
Yeah.
he wasn't the only... Tommy wasn't the only one that we had a thing with. And even though I passed things up with him...
And Chad, yeah.
There was still that drama with my friend. And I mean, he was my best friend for 10 years. And I can't say that even... If he doesn't feel like that, I won't say that we're not. But I don't know his point of view because we haven't talked in such a long while. We talk, and when we see each other, we're respectful, and we're just like, hey, how are things going? And, we just act like something, whatever happened in the past never really happened. Because we try to put that aside as an...
Well, yeah, at some point, you can't really, like, after a certain period of time, you can't really talk logistics of things. It's just better to recognize... Especially when it is true, and in a lot of cases it is, that both sides have made dumb decisions, and it's best to, call it a day and, try to move on, because you've probably forgotten most of the details of why you were angry in the first place, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. So, anyway, after grade 12, graduation rolled around, and I had a reasonable good group of friends. Also in grade 12, that was the year that I got my job at... Well, within Costco, it's not Costco.
It's presenting that happens to be affiliated with Costco.
Yeah, it's...
right.
The company is actually PWD, which is Professional Warehouse Demonstration.
Right.
All we do is samples, so nothing fancy about that at all.
Yeah.
It's not a bad job, and I met a lot of people through there, and my friends really started becoming more dynamic that way. I met a lot of... Even though most of them were girls, but... Most of them are girls. A lot of them are still my friends to this day. And so, grade 12, I got that job, graduation, and after that, I applied to NSCC for Applied Media Communication Arts.
Yeah.
And I actually got accepted and went in for the year. And what happened was I just had a hard time catching up because it's a whole lot different than high school.
Yeah.
You had the teachers really to, I guess I should say to be more tolerant than college teachers.
Yeah.
You're paying to be there, and if you don't want to spend the time the way you don't want it to, I mean, not that I wasn't spending the time, it's just, I guess...
It's a different beast. Community college, university, college, doesn't matter what you're talking about, but further education past public school is a different beast, and you got to get adjusted to it, and it's a struggle for a lot of people, including myself.
Exactly, and I learned that through the first year, so I passed most of the courses, but there was a few that I didn't have, so I went back for a second year, and at that time, Brina at the time broke up with me, and we moved on. And that year was actually a really weird year because I don't really know this one a lot. So basically that year, starting from the beginning of 2012.
Yeah.
The New Year's party happened, where I convulsed. Only a few know
Convulsed.
drinking.
Yeah, okay, I figured.
Anyway, so Rena broke up with me. I took the classes that I passed.
Mm-hmm.
And I got along with some of the classmates I had and some of them I didn't.
Right.
So it was a pretty rough year. Summer came around and I met this guy through Alan. His name was Andre, and that's Hal. And we looked pretty from high school, so my friends started growing even more from there. But what happened there was, we always had parties at this friend's house, and there was more people that came in, and most of them were my friends. I'm not going to go into the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's just, then I'm just digging too deep with people that don't really know that I'm doing this. So,
Right.
Anyway, people would get drunk, people would get dramatic, and
Tends to happen.
yeah, people were getting into relationships in that group, and in fact, aside from that, that's how I met another girl.
Another one.
You won't believe this one's.
Okay. Go ahead. Go on.
So, and actually, I'll be honest, this is actually a lot more different. The beginning is the same as the other ones.
Okay.
She liked me because she thought I was nice, and I
Yeah.
went out with her, as well as everyone else. And she was like, well, there's this guy that I like, and blah, 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 the whole speech.
Right.
Turned out to be me.
Cool.
And we tried dating.
Who was this?
Her name was Jacqueline. You wouldn't know her. She's from Bedford, though.
Okay.
Well, originated from Bedford.
Once you're from Bedford, you're always from Bedford. As far as I'm concerned, once you're Bedford, you're always Bedford boy.
Word.
You, Chris, if you're listening to this shit, hey, Bedford boy, fuck you. And he'll knowingly, if he listens to this, he'll message me back a couple days later and say fuck you. Keep going though.
Okay, well, as long as everything's all good there.
Right. Yeah, it is.
It's not like an intentional, fuck you, I hate you kind of thing.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
So anyway, dated this girl also.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, the beginning was the same.
Right.
6 days later, broke up with me.
Yeah, that shit happens.
She just wasn't ready.
Yeah.
But then there's a whole elaborate thing that happened. I don't even want to get into that.
Okay.
Because that, oh my god. I think only she or maybe a few people would understand as much as me.
Okay.
Just the whole elaborate thing. As well as, I would have to say it was a whole war.
A war?
It was a war.
A war.
That whole group at the party group, basically.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you have relationships and they go sour, then people take sides, yada, 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 shit hits the fan.
Of me dating her.
No, probably not.
It was completely,
Something separate.
yeah, because there was two people in that group that were dating, and when they broke up, everybody started taking sides, and
that's
some
never good.
moved to the other side. So it was just a whole dramatic thing that actually wasn't worth it, because in the end, some of them still talk to each other, and I don't understand why. I'm like, why would you start this up in the first place when we could have just got along?
Yeah.
And that was something I learned from, high school.
Right.
So anyway, aside from that, I went back to NSCC to finish up a few of the courses, and
Yeah.
after that, I just continued working a lot more. I started working full time at where I work now, again in Costco. Still talk to a few of my friends, and around the year of college, I had the YouTube channel going, but because of everything that was happening, I had to stop.
Oh, brother, I know you're coming from that.
At least if you subscribe to my channel or liked my channel, now you, in somewhat of a way, you understand why I had to stop.
Yeah.
Because of stupid little bullshit that
Life happens, man.
life happens. And I guess it just wasn't meant for me to do YouTube at the time. So that's why I'm hoping I can get back into that a little more.
I just start one step at a time. I got that video out. I essentially edited that in one whole day, like one whole shot. And I just realized it's overwhelming at first when you start up again, but after you get in the rhythm, you're just back into it, and it's great.
Yeah. But it's not like we're doing this for a living, so.
No pressure. Life, it takes a precedence, school especially.
Yeah. Now, of course, if I was doing this for a living, then I probably would, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I have to see where life takes me, actually.
Right.
As
Oh,
far as I'm
yeah.
concerned. So other than that, I came from work one day, and I went over to Walmart.
Oh, yeah.
And I went over to the news section, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, I see someone of Chinese descent come up to me. I'm like, he looks like he wants to say hi to me. I wondered why, and then I woke carefully, and it's actually Tommy.
Yeah, well, I mean, keep in mind, I had just gotten my hair cut, because my hair is usually like medium length. It's pretty thick. Beforehand, if you'd seen photos of me, I could see why you could be confused at first, like not immediately recognize me, because it was always slicked back. Like you could probably see the shine first before you see me come in. But I just gotten cut short recently, so yeah. Couldn't understand. And my clothes even, like I didn't dress the same way. Like it's been a radical change with clothing too.
Oh yeah. But anyway, that same day, we also picked up Chad from his work, and we hung over that day, and
It was a good time, yeah.
ever since then, I mean, things have been slowing down. Things have been better. Things at home are at least a little bit more organized. My friends are fully dynamic. And I think the best part about the little that I was able to describe in this podcast is that I feel that I turned out perfectly normal. I mean, for
Yeah,
what
I
I
think
was supposed
so.
to start out as, I mean, practically, I was supposed to be the kid that was just never going to learn, or I was just going to basically sit at home and do nothing because I was just, apparently diagnosed with autism, or
Yeah.
just someone associated with a mental illness, and here I am just being normal, being a normal person.
Yeah, man, I think you've turned out great, and you've really proven, the doctors wrong, medicine wrong. You've proven, well, I guess actually it would be a misdiagnosis on their part, but you proved that doctor that said that you wouldn't be able to turn out the way you did was wrong, and you proved it wrong. It's great, man. I think society doesn't always give people a great chance. I mean, with me, I guess the odds weren't on my side either. I mean, not as hard as it would have been for you, but my mom was, I think, about 38 when she had me, and that was back when they're like, if you have kids when you're 38, they will be retarded or have mental or physical handicaps, right? I'm like, so I think I turned out okay. I'm not that smart, but smart enough to do what I have to do. And, same thing like growing up, I never was someone who made friends easy. I made a couple of friends that were always very good. People like Kyle, like Chad, like Russell that, I did have my disagreements with here and there, but they've always been good friends for the most part. I had a short fuse, and got in fights. I've been suspended twice for fighting, which is something we didn't bring up. One of them, I mean, some other time maybe, but yeah, it's like you never expect, and I was sort of lazy in junior high, but that's the thing about people is you never know what's going to happen, and one event or one thought can change someone a lot, and they can go from one thing to something else, and that's the thing. Society, the odds, they can never predict everything, because it's often those people who aren't given a chance by society or by people who make these so-called odds that somebody will succeed, somebody won't. Those are the people you don't see coming when they do succeed or they do prove you wrong. I think it's a shame. People shouldn't be so quick to say you can only do this, be so judgmental. Give people a chance, because people do surprise you, and they will if you give them a chance, and you don't live by, you don't make quick judgments on people. Just give them a chance.
Exactly. I probably had to say that's the best way to put it myself.
Yeah.
I don't think I can describe that any better.
Well, yeah, that's just the essential idea there is that a lot of the great things in life, a lot of the great things, whether it's movies, people, achievements, are not things that you think would work out, but people did give them a chance and they did succeed, and that's life. It's surprising. And one thing I, would like to leave people the idea is that if you meet someone and you don't immediately click with them, don't rule them out as someone, because I found that a lot of the people I ended up being really good friends with except for Chad, really. I mean, in the case where we had the same uniform and like in grade 1 for that Christmas concert, but you may not always know who will be your really good friends. A lot of people, like someone like Austin Bond, the first time I met that guy, he put up a meat spin video up on someone's computer. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? What the fuck is he doing? But he turned out to be a really open-minded and cool guy. And Austin, if you're listening to this, that's how I really feel, man. I mean, even though my first introduction to you was odd, you turned out to be a great guy. And that's just an example of how you never know who's going to end up being really good friends, what could happen, and then what could happen later on. Like, you could stop being friends with someone, you might move apart, and you might come back together. And that's what's happened with, like, me and Kyle here. And it came at a time, I think it was perfect, because as after second semester, I had, lost a lot of friends like Isaac and Jillian, and I guess I could, if I included Brian and Steven as friends, but sort of. But yeah, I lost friends like that. It's been a challenging year, and out of nowhere, people come back into your life. It's great.
Yeah. So I guess if we're on the last few words, I mean, just based on what you were doing there, I guess I have to thank a few people during my life that I don't think I've showed, well, either not enough appreciation or I just haven't really crossed it to them, and I just hope that they know. So basically, my mother, because she never gave up on me. But that's, I think she knows that.
Yeah,
so
parents.
I guess I'm gonna go with friends on this one. So basically, with John, I guess if you are listening to this, I do really want to thank you very much for being my friend for the 10 years that we had around. And I mean, we still probably talk, and we still act pretty, I guess we're pretty mature. So, yeah, civil's a word for it. And I guess whatever happened to us in the past, I hope eventually that we could put that aside and continue being the friends the way that we used to all the time. But until then, whatever works best for you. And either way, I do want to thank you for being my friend at that time. I also do want to thank Tommy and Chad for being there during junior high and even the fights.
Yeah, well, shit happens.
Yeah, but I'm surprised. Like I said, you have to give things a chance, and obviously it turned out for the better because here we are again.
Good friends.
Yeah,
like we used to be.
Yeah. And also currently, right now, Alan and James, they're my close friends right now. Especially Matt too. I mean, I can't forget about him.
Yeah, Matt's a cool guy.
He's grade 3 and he's still kicking around.
Yeah, good old Matt.
Yeah, friends from junior high. I want to thank you for being there. But I guess, I hope that all of you kind of know that. I want to thank you for some point for being in my life, regardless to how you were in my life, good or bad. I have to thank you in some way, shape, and form. So I really do want to thank all of you for that, and if you're listening to it, I really do hope that you were appreciated. Even if you're not in my life now. If you are now, then yes, you're still very appreciated.
Yeah.
I don't even know where I'm going to go with that anymore because I can't go into it without it being so long. So
Yeah.
But mainly, I did want to get that across. So other than that, I hope really to continue stuff like this because this is
I'd like to have you back on if you want at some point.
it's a new thing for me.
It's new for me too. I enjoy it.
Yeah, and I hope at some point, maybe when there's more time to be made, I'm hoping not only with Tommy here, but also with Alan because he has a channel going, and my cousin Harrison actually, who wants to start something. I hope that we can all at some point or another do cross collaborations as well as our own projects, and
Yeah, that'd be cool.
hopefully there's things for all of you as the audience to be kept entertained as we kind of make some kind of rise here in Nova Scotia. Because with Nova Scotia you're pretty limited to the things.
Yeah.
So I hope we can some point or another do that, and I hope, like I said, to bring my channel back up.
Right.
Which reminds me too.
Yeah.
If you guys happen to be curious about me or Tommy here, you should send us in some questions, and
Yeah,
we could do a frequently
You can send it. You can make comments on YouTube. You can send us a message on Facebook. I guess Twitter, but I'll be honest, I don't really use Twitter. So
Yeah, and maybe do like a little more about me, kind of like short episode snippet.
yeah. So I mean, Kyle, do you want to plug a couple things like Facebook or YouTube or Twitter?
Oh yeah, sure. So if you're interested in seeing the previous work that I've done, go to Facebook and type in Kyle Wright Network. It should come up with the blue logo. It's my official logo that I'm going to be using for quite a while. I think we'll be using it for quite some time. Anyway, go to Kyle Wright Network and feel free to like and check out all my YouTube videos from there, and all my links are on there, including Twitter, the YouTube channel, and just everything that you need to know on Facebook that was there. And if you want to put anything up or...
No, I mean, that's everything I got to say. So yeah, man. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it was good to be on your show anyway.
Oh yeah, it was fun. I knew like the first guest we had to have on would have to be someone I was pretty close with and I knew well and they knew me well, so it'd be a good conversation. And it was, man. It probably is really deep. I don't really get in conversations that deep.
That was probably, like I said, this is the first podcast that I've really ever done, so this was refreshing for me. This was extremely different, and I'm glad.
Yeah, it's a different form of medium.
Yeah. I'm very glad that I get to participate in such a thing. So
cool, man. All right, thanks, bud.
So I want to thank you all for listening.
Cool. All right. That's been the Danger Zone. Catch you out there, guys. So stay frosty.
You've been listening to The Danger Zone with Tommy Lee.